Hello there, folks. It's Nerdy John here with another episode of the Nerdy Podcast. And today we have a very special guest.
Hello.
Today we're going to be talking about RPGs, specifically the old school kind. Now, I don't know about you folks, but personally, I grew up on console RPGs. What did you grow up on, good sir?
I grew up on it was a mix of console RPGs and whatever could run on Windows 3.1 back in the Neolithic era.
Ah, yes, the archaeologists have dug up some of those ancient pieces of technology. Let's see. What kind of PC RPGs did you play? Did you play like Ultima?
Oddly enough, one of my first RPGs that I played was Ultima 7.
That was the one that's actually considered one of the better ones, and that was the one that got the Super Nintendo port.
Yeah, it technically got a Super Nintendo port. The problem was that because of the size of the cartridge, they had to take so much of the Ultima experience out of the Ultima 7 port for Super Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just one guy walking around and maybe running into some plot.
I remember watching a YouTuber who went by the Spoony one. He had a huge, expansive retrospective on the Ultima series.
Oh yeah, I'll miss him.
Oh, dude, it's sort of a sad state of affair. He streams occasionally with the webcam on, but he doesn't really have a mic. He doesn't have the mic on. So you're just seeing a man deteriorating slowly while playing a random video game.
No, well, with Spoony, it's sort of one of the quotes that gets falsely attributed to Henry Ford, but did sum up his rise and fall is a statement. If I asked what people wanted, they'd say a faster horse. And with Henry Ford, it's like being so sure of himself. When he got overtaken, he didn't quite know how to deal with it. And that's the same thing with Spoony. It's like the part of the I know what I'm doing attitude was his rise. And then it's like but after he hit his peak, it really accelerated his downfall.
Right. I think what helped set, if not led to it, set the seeds for it at least, was when he got into that Twitter beef with some of the then Channel Awesome creators.
That's as far as like having his crowd and his audience, it's ultimately I'm willing to defer to his judgment, and it's that the Spoony audience isn't quite the Channel Awesome audience.
No.
So after he broke away from Channel Awesome over that spat, it was nice while it lasted, but no one's really hurting after that.
Right. Little did everyone know he was jumping off the ship early, even if it wasn't intended. Let's see. It's the Cinema Snob, and then Nostalgia Critic.
Yeah.
And then occasionally you'll see angry video game nerd poke his head out once in a while because he wants to be nice.
Yeah. I haven't checked. Is Guru Larry still stubbornly trying to be the last man standing on that one?
Oh shoot! Guru Larry's content is so different from the rest of Channel Awesome. I forget he's part of Channel Awesome.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't do like angry reviews. He does top 10s.
Yeah.
But
it was still fun though.
He has that charm.
He was trying to win the Exodus like it was a battle royale.
Yeah, Guru Larry's style content is just, it's so different. Like, even like obviously like you had Angry Joe on the video game side, and even though he wasn't an official part of Channel Awesome, you had again Angry Video Game Nerd in the background.
Yeah.
Occasionally I watch remnants of people who were on that, like Askirps Lupa, who does the Movie Nights channel, Fatalists. But like Dominic Noble, and then I don't know if you saw this guy Rocked. I think his actual name is Jake. He was with like Todd in the Shadows and Rap Critic. He was the music side of Channel Awesome.
Yeah.
And like I want to enjoy their content, but it's not even that I necessarily agree with it's not that I agree or disagree with the statements that they make, but oftentimes they get just a little too political in their videos. And again, it's not that I disagree nor do I agree with the statements of political comments made. It feels more unnecessary to the content for the video itself. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah. Actually, I feel like I want to write a thank you to Bennett the Sage because I don't know what his political affiliations are.
Right. It's like, wow, a content creator who doesn't share political beliefs.
Sticks to just being an entertainer.
Yes. Wow, it's and like these guys will make fun of like Hollywood actors for stating their political beliefs. But it's at the same time they'll state their political beliefs. It's like you're a bit of a hypocrite on the smaller scale. Like, and I don't care about an entertainer's political beliefs as long as they're entertaining. It's just it gets annoying when that becomes their forefront before the entertainment.
Yeah.
Like if I wanted to have a political discussion, I would watch a political channel. But I just want to hear you.
Yeah, pretty much.
I just want to hear some jokes about this bad novel or this bad song. Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know about the Ultima series, for the early games anyway, you could start out as like a poor peasant and then fight dragons and everything, and then do space battles.
I've actually never played the first Ultima. Although after I had played Ultima 7, I then went on to play Ultima 3 on Nintendo.
Like NES?
Which, yes, original NES. I was still playing on the original NES in the 90s. And it was a bit of a shock for me because I went into 3 expecting to play something similar to 7, and boy, was I surprised!
Right, like it's obviously it's because of how technology grew from early days of programming, but the jump that the Ultimate series made was pretty significant in between each installment.
Oh, technology. That's a fun angle for Ultima 7 because Ultima 7 came with its own memory manager.
Oh,
So
really?
in order to play Ultima 7, yeah, it's like back in the days around when the Pentium was first coming out, I guess. But back in those days, you had to create a boot disk, reboot your computer so that it boots without the memory manager so that Ultima 7 can take that over.
Interesting. You know what
Yeah.
I'm really surprised by since they own it? I'm surprised EA hasn't done like an edgy reboot of Ultima yet.
Oh,
Like,
they already killed it with Ultima 9.
yeah. I mean, like, just resurrect that corpse for like some microtransactions, like make an open world Ultima game, and like, I don't know, maybe
Most likely they'd be more willing to sell the license, or they'd be more willing to rent out the license. And it would be, and I doubt there's anyone who's like looking to make the next Ultima that would be willing to desecrate it.
right. I mean, like Lord Britton, the original creator. I mean,
Yeah.
he's moved on to greener pastures.
Yeah. Relatively. I don't actually know how well Shroud of the Avatar is panning out for him.
True.
It's
So I'm sure if he's desperate enough, maybe one day he'll buy back the license from EA, and then maybe
no,
he'll
that
do
wouldn't be a sign of desperation. That would be a sign of success.
right. The more cynical viewers, like I don't know, like Zero Punctuation, like Yahtzee, I'm pretty sure like someone
Yeah.
like them would probably view it as so your original creations haven't done well, so you're going back to where you did previously. You know, something like that.
Yeah. Well, it's like sorry. It's like I read it off as like saying buying the license back instead of renting it back.
Ah. Oh god.
Yeah, because
Spoonie's
it really is
video
his.
on Ultima 9 was like chef's kiss. Mwah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That poor bastard.
Yeah. Another 90s game another 90s RPG that I played a fair amount was Daggerfall.
Ooh, an Elder Scrolls game up in here. Now, did you ever play the original? Like, did you ever play Elder Scrolls Arena, or did you just start from Daggerfall?
I started with that. Well, I started with a demo of Daggerfall back when PC Gamer included demos in the discs that came with the magazine.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I Daggerfall had ruined me for later installments because it did include the anatomically correct option for the graphics.
Oh god. Oh, you know what scares me? All right, I'm just gonna come out and say it. Skyrim's not an RPG. It really isn't. It's
it's a theme park. It really is just a theme park, and where you go up to this camp, and then you go inside and you take a ride through the tunnel of love, and then you pick up your prize on the way out and go on to the next ride.
Yeah. And what worries me is okay, so like I would say Morrowind is actually a significant improvement from Daggerfall, although Daggerfall is still like relevant to play. And Daggerfall did the same thing when was a sequel to Arena. But when you went from Morrowind to Oblivion, there was a clear downgrade and development for a more casual base. And then finally, when you went from Oblivion to Skyrim, that casualness like plummeted into the depths and became like the main thing. Now I'm wondering like how casual is Elder Scrolls 6 gonna be?
With that, that's a question I've actually just stopped thinking about, mainly because now that Microsoft is calling the show, and actually when Microsoft bought the ZeniMax and Bethesda, my first thought was, wow, I just can't feel anything about this purchase.
Right. Because it's not like
It's like,
Microsoft.
okay, yeah, so that happened.
It's not like Microsoft's going to be like quality control time because, I mean, the release of Halo 5 says everything for itself. The initial release, the game's stable now, but like the initial release, my God. Yeah, so it's not like they're gonna they're actually gonna wrangle in Bethesda and make them not release a buggy mess. No. Although we will probably see a Master Chief armor as a DLC for Elder Scrolls 6, so stay tuned for that, ladies and gentlemen.
Actually, I've had two separate thoughts about how Bethesda Softworks became what it is today. And hearing about the development of Morrowind, I realized that ultimately Todd Howard more or less became the head of the studio
Didn't he
during Morrowind's development, and more or less went full George Lucas, and nobody could say anything disagreeing to him.
Didn't he go on record saying that he hated developing Morrowind?
I don't know, but I would believe that he did.
Like, I'm sure he's a lovely...
Yeah, from what I heard, he got in fights with the other creatives all the time.
Oh, God.
Because he wanted to go full power fantasy.
Look, guys, we need to go power fantasy. It will just work, all right? The players will love it. We're competing with Knights of the Old Republic, a Star Wars property. They're going to outsell us. Just imagine. Fun fact, Knights of the Old Republic 1 and Morrowind released in the same year.
Ah. Yeah, of course, at the time when while Morrowind was being made, I really was looking forward to it because I had such good experiences with Daggerfall.
I mean,
and then it's like Morrowind came out, and it's like I enjoyed playing it, and all my friends enjoyed playing it. So I basically became a Bethesda fanboy during that time.
And then did you know about Fallout before the Bethesda purchase, or did you find out about Fallout thanks to them?
No, I knew about Fallout before the Bethesda purchase. I actually I played Fallout 1 and 2 around it's I kind of smuggled, so to speak, under my dad's nose the CDs for Fallout 1 and 2 around the same time that Diablo 2 was coming out.
Ooh.
And so, a friend of mine played both of them, and he really loved it. And that's how we all in that friend group discovered the ink spots. And so, yeah, I knew about Fallout 2 by the time Bethesda had purchased it. And I was in the Bethesda Net forums at the time while it was being made.
Ooh.
And it was actually during that time when I stopped being a fanboy anymore. It was when they basically it was no longer an isometric turn-based, because, quote, not everybody wants an isometric turn-based.
Right, but not everyone wants a first-person shooter
I
either,
left,
so you can't use that argument.
I left the forums and have never gone back. I pledged my eternal enmity against Bethesda that day.
Right, and what's funny is, like, obviously, like, I'm a bit younger, so like all of my friends who, you know, aren't deep into like video game history and stuff and are just like casual fans of Bethesda, they've only known the first person games. They don't, and like, even though there are slight RPG elements in them, I would argue that these games aren't action RPGs. I would argue that they're action games with RPG elements in them. They've only known these first couple of games, especially since the majority of them have got into the series with Fallout 4, which is the furthest from that element.
Oh, yeah, it's the least Fallouts.
Of the Fallout.
It's just wearing the skin of Fallout.
Wait, if Fallout 4 is wearing the skin, what's 76 doing?
76 is wearing its old rags.
On top,
it's not even pretending to be wearing its skin. It's just it's wearing just scattered rags of an old vault suit and saying, "Hey, I'm a Fallout game."
I'm
a Fallout game without NPCs. You know,
the
franchise was built on dialogue with NPCs, but no, I'm still a Fallout game.
Actually, they added NPCs, so your argument is null and void. Well, they should have added NPCs to begin with.
Yeah, I find it funny people saying that there's pay to win mechanics in the game, and my stance of the whole thing has been the only winning move is to get a refund,
which is nearly impossible to do. And then they add like the $100
because you downloaded the files,
right? Then they added the $100 subscription service.
Yeah.
So you have a $60 game that has microtransactions that has a $100 subscription service, and you're not WoW. WoW as in World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Like the massive balls you must have as a game developer.
Actually, the second part of how Bethesda became what it is today is Robert Altman, the head of ZeniMax. He's basically, from what I've heard about him, he's basically Emperor Palpatine.
Do it.
And it's like all the it's like I'm willing to bet that at least most of the nickel and diming schemes that have unfolded in Fallout 76 are from Robert, came from ZeniMax, and Robert Altman specifically.
Because people forget that Bethesda is owned by ZeniMax, which is now owned by Microsoft. So if he's Emperor Palpatine, does that make Todd his Darth Vader?
Basically.
Or is he Kylo Ren?
No, he's I haven't seen him go into enough outbursts to be Kylo Ren.
I don't.
And although he lies all the time, he doesn't change character all the time.
He doesn't. He is the mild mannered video game programmer.
Yeah.
Guys, I was on the chess team, I swear.
Listen, I've heard we've had some bugs after I told you that it just works. And I find your lack of faith disturbing.
The Imperial March just plays at E3 and everyone's confused. Yeah. Wait, this isn't the EA. This isn't the EA conference yet. Why am I hearing the Star Wars music already? You just have a bunch of like Volt Tech people come out with Skyrim armor, and by Skyrim armor I mean like the town guard suits.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You know what I would love to see them actually do though? Do a spin-off where the isometric gameplay is the main thing. That would be interesting. It shows that they still acknowledge the franchise's past.
That would be interesting, but I wouldn't really put like any faith in that happening.
I'll tell you what is a good Fallout game. Fallout New Vegas.
Of course.
What? You mean the game that was made by the original that made by members of the original Fallout team is the good game? Yeah. What?
Yeah.
Wait, what do you mean they got screwed out of a bonus that they were undercutted anyway? What do you mean it actually? What's ironic is it actually sold more than 76 ever did. What? I still find that so funny in hindsight.
Yeah. I actually haven't run into like anyone that says like Fallout 76 is worse than, or Fallout New Vegas is worse than 3, 4, 76.
Oh, I'm sure you'll find it somewhere, probably underneath all those quote unquote video essays.
Yeah.
You know, the ones that have like just out of the bat say Fallout 3 is the worst game of all time. And here's why. Yeah. And then like it's 2 hours long. Like, Jesus, man, get to the point.
No, it's like the only like really genuine Fallout New Vegas hatred video I've seen was Razor Fist's review of it when it first came out and still had all the bugs.
Right. So that would make sense.
Later on I saw him streaming the game, and he prefaced his streaming with, let's get one thing straight. I played that when it first came out, was filled with all of the bugs. Things are definitely better this time around.
Right. Of course, you see, it's like when No Man's Sky came out, that was an incomplete mess. But now, you know, several years later, it makes everyone who did like a day one review of the game look like complete idiots. When in reality, it should have been up to the game developer to release what they were supposed to release up front and not wait to release half that content.
Yeah, Sean Murray, that was I find that one interesting. I have a habit of trying to paint people in the best light possible.
Oh,
after like seeing what No Man's Sky has become, I'm willing to say that it's like Sean Murray didn't really lie so much as he rushed his promises. He rushed
Right. I wouldn't say
statements
he's a
on what
bad
will
dude
be
at
in the
all.
game.
He was kind of like a tough position
Yeah.
of like, he couldn't say that these things definitely weren't in the game, but at the same time, if you notice in a lot of the interviews, he's actually not really confirming a lot. It's just
Yeah, it's
people made a lot of assumptions.
well, it's like he implying is. I'm not as willing to let people off the hook for implying stuff. It's like I didn't technically confirm.
Right.
Because it's like with marketing, it's like you really are trying to get people excited for your project.
So, with let's see, Valve has made one game, and like in the past like 3 years. No, wait, 2 games, because they made the Dota card game spinoff, and then they made Half-Life Alyx.
Yeah, Valve isn't. Or sorry, you were gonna.
Oh, it's like, it's so weird seeing what used to be like the height of like what a studio should be, and at this point they're just, they're they're a company that runs the biggest gaming market available, and you'll find that they made games on occasion. Like, I think that's what like the current picture of Valve is.
Yeah, this is a point of view I actually gleaned from Guru Larry's friend Slope's Game Room. Slope's Game Room has done a few origin stories for various game companies, like how Nintendo started off with as a playing card company before it became
Right. That's
before
actually
it became
really
a
interesting
console.
part of their history. Nintendo, they made toys and trading
Yeah.
cards.
Yeah, and it's interesting thinking. It's like the old guard we have now. It's like so many, almost all of them transitioned into becoming video game companies. And what's so weird now is that Valve is the first company to transition out of being a game developer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, you can transition from game development into game publishing, but in terms of, yeah, they just distribute games now, not in terms of publishing, but just like, hey, buy our games
Well,
on
they're a
Steam.
marketplace. They're a marketplace manager now, essentially.
Yeah. Do they even have any like game developers on staff anymore?
I imagine they do, considering that it's like they put out Half-Life Alyx recently.
Well, I mean, yeah. No. I just imagine they're it's like a tomb, and they sealed off all the game developers except for all the execs who had the higher pay raise. And then they just open up the tomb. It's the first time any of the game devs seen any daylight since Portal 2. And they're like, it's just, and then Greg comes out and he's like, it's time. We're finally going to develop Half-Life 3, sir? No. Just get to programming. That's one thing they've gone on record saying is the reason why there hasn't been a Half-Life 3 is because of all the overhype like that all the hype that they feel
Yeah,
from the fans.
yeah, it's like there's no way they could possibly match the hype.
But like at the same time, I would argue that before Half-Life 2 came out, no one thought that they could have matched the results from Half-Life 1. And I think at this point, people aren't going into Half-Life 3 thinking that it's going to outdo Half-Life 2 if there ever was one. I think they just want a closure to the story.
I would imagine most people.
Yeah, and like if we don't get stuff done long enough, if we just let it sit there long enough, we get like mangled messes like Hunt Down the Freeman. Oh god. Have you ever actually watched an interview that the main like guy in charge of Hunt Down the Freeman has done?
I have not seen any of those.
Well, what's funny is, and this is gonna come out spicy, but please no, I don't mean this in any harmful way whatsoever. English is not his first language. From you can tell from the interviews. Yeah, like, and I imagine that's probably what probably led to some of the dodgy voice direction. Because it's very obviously like it's very stilted. And then he gets people like Keemstar and I Hate Everything and Pyrocynical to do voices for the characters. Honestly, yeah, with and what's funny is video game hype in general. Like I think maybe I want to say after the mess that was Cyberpunk 2077, I think maybe people will learn not to get invested as much into hype. But who knows? Because people thought like that after like No Man's Sky came out, people would not get invested into hype, but
a few people will, but the crowd in general will still pre-order the next thing in droves.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to talk about was, and you had a spicy take, spicy. You stated that I don't know if you meant this as a whole for the series or just a particular game you had in mind, but you stated, sir, that you believe that Final Fantasy is not an RPG series.
Yeah, that comes down to actually defining what a role-playing game is. And it's like a definition I've managed to refine that actually separates a role-playing game from other games. It's a game where player character actions affect how the story plays out.
And because of how linear the story is with Final Fantasy
how
games,
linear the story is for for most role-playing games in general, it's like especially Final Fantasy. Yeah, it's like I wouldn't call them role-playing games. They're adventure games with menu-based combat.
That is a definite spicy take. Of course, everyone forgets, like the originator of RPGs are tabletop games. You know, tabletop games is where you, for all your fellow youngins, your fellow Zoomers out there. God, I feel old just saying that, even though I'm technically part of that.
So considering the origins, you fellow Satan worshippers.
I know.
Yeah.
You know, kids. Before it was video games, tabletop games, you got accused of being a Satan worshiper.
Yeah.
I'm sure someone out there, if they could have, they probably would have blamed school shootings on tabletop games.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if someone had tried.
It was because he rolled a 20-sided dice, sir.
Yeah.
Like, that was.
Yeah, but
you know what's funny?
It's like you were saying though. It started off with It started off with war games,
mm-hmm.
and then it's like an army level war game got adapted into a squad level war game, where it's and the guy Gary Gygax and Wozniak, I believe, or actually no, I'm trying to remember who the other creator of Dungeons and Dragons was.
I feel like such a non-fan for not remembering who the names are. Are they still alive?
Well, it's like everyone remembers. Gary Gygax died in 2008.
Oh Jesus!
Let's see. Dave Amison died in 2009.
Oh,
or Arneson.
Oh,
ARN.
So
yeah.
both creators are dead.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sad. That's sad.
Yeah, but it's it's like, yeah, they took the war games and decided, hey, let's have a squad of them go on a Lord of the Rings adventure, essentially.
Right. They were really
and that's how Dungeons and Dragons was born.
They were reading Tolkien and like, we can make something out of this.
Well, most likely they had already read Tolkien by that point.
Oh yeah.
And taken the chainmail wargaming system.
Yeah, and then like in those games, depending on your role, you got to make the character you want. You could decide their backstory, what they're like. What, are they good? Are they evil? You know.
Yeah.
And then obviously it got popular to the point where when computer programming became a popular thing, people wanted to program games based on these. Like, you know, Lord British, Ultima was essentially just him programming, hey, this is what happened during our D&D session.
Yeah.
Right. And
Star Wars had just came out, so we were so part of our D&C session was hopping into TIE fighters.
Right. Well, it's like, and obviously like Western RPGs and JRPGs, they took the Dungeons and Dragons mechanics totally in different directions. I would argue that while yes, in terms of story, like if we're talking just mainly Final Fantasy, with that, I would argue it took more from like the sheet party, like the sheet, like it's stat management stuff. And then early Western RPGs took, you know, the story, like the role playing aspect.
Yeah. The player choice aspect.
Right. And of course, Final Fantasy still has a hint of that because, like, you know, the very first one, you could decide your classes, you know.
So yeah, it's like I played the original and I enjoyed it. And it's like even with all the technical shortcomings that have been fixed since then, such as if you have two guys attacking an ogre and the first guy kills it, the second guy attacks empty space.
Right. Of course, I
Yeah.
don't know if you saw the Pro Jared video on Final Fantasy 1, but his opinion on that is that's good for the sense that it doesn't become a mindless button masher.
Yeah. Yeah, and I appreciated that because it really did make me think, okay, will this be enough to kill this guy?
Right, and like I think, okay,
Yeah.
so my last turn, I managed to hit him, but it was only for 4 points. I don't remember exactly how much hit points they have. Should I have him attack? But if it ends up, if the first guy does end up killing him, that just leaves the other guy open for another attack from the different enemy.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what all my experiences of the first Final Fantasy. It's because, like, yeah, I was a kid when I played it, and it really, actually, what really blew my mind was with the monk.
Oh, the monk
Where,
is so broken.
oh yeah, he was so deliciously broken. And it's like the first time experiencing it, it's like you're trying to fight this. It's like you're fighting a group of ogres, and it's at first it'll get your party killed, and then it's like around level 10 when your monk suddenly is doing 4 attacks with high damage.
Mm-hmm. And
And
plus
it's
too,
like,
as long as you have a
and this was made
healer,
at like before.
as long as you have a healer on your team, the
Yeah,
damage can be soaked up.
yeah, yeah. But it's like seeing a monk one-shotting ogres for the first time. It was like, oh, this is great. And it's funny. This was made before third edition really brought monks. Third edition D&D brought monks into the mainstream.
That's when they introduced monks themselves.
Yeah.
Let's see. My first,
Or maybe they were in second edition, but it's not in the same way of like more attacks and more damage as you level up.
yeah. My first experience was like I knew about the Final Fantasy series, but like when Lightning's Return came out, I was like, hey, this is a series I really want to get interested in. And then I played a demo of Final Fantasy 13 too. And I was like, wasn't bad. And then I played Bravely Default, which is basically a Final Fantasy spinoff. And I really enjoyed that game. Like that game is like top 10 for favorite games of all time. And then and then I always played before I even knew what a Final Fantasy game was. I played Kingdom Hearts, which is the Disney and Final Fantasy crossover series. And then finally, I saw on my PS3 that Final Fantasy VII was marked off, so I bought that.
Huh.
Yeah. And that's where I became a fan of the series. Oh, shocker that he became a fan of the series with the most popular entry.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they marketed it the hardest.
Yeah. Look at his sword.
Funnily enough, I never got into Final Fantasy VII. I played it for like 15 minutes, get to the first Scorpion boss, and I could never really pick out the warning message from everything else going on in the background.
Oh, you mean like
So
when he
I'd
lifts
just
up
be
his
fighting,
tail?
and all of a sudden he lasers Barrett and Cloud to death. And it's like, okay, I'm done. It's like I find out later there's warnings, don't attack him right now. But at the time when I was playing it, I couldn't see those.
Wait, wasn't there like a
Everything it was
text
just
pop up
cluttered.
saying? Wasn't there a text pop up saying don't attack him?
Maybe. It's like you have to admit, it's like it is pretty visually cluttered.
Because it was the first 3D game, so they were like, look at our dazzling graphics.
Yeah, and around that time, the whole materia junctioning chart
So, but
was
nowadays,
quite the joke.
I would say I'm more of a fan of FF10. I haven't played FF2 yet because I'm still in the midst of playing FF10. But overall, I would say I enjoyed that more than I did 7. What's beautiful about the Final Fantasy franchise is that numbered entries aren't necessarily connected, so anyone can jump in.
Yeah.
Unless you're playing Final Fantasy 12 before you play Final Fantasy Tactics. In which case isn't entirely bad because it doesn't directly go off that story, it just takes place in the same world, but still.
With this plucky little hero. And it's like, even with 12 in Tactics and Tactics Advance and A2, it's a shared setting, but the stories still aren't really connected per se.
Yeah. Oh, you know, it's a really good JRPG franchise that I feel invigorates the role-playing aspect. Shin Megami Tensei, if you've ever heard of that series.
I've heard of it, never played it.
So what's beautiful about the Shin Megami Tensei franchise is that it gives you it's like to put it in a D&D retrospective, law, neutral, chaos. Those are your choices.
Yeah.
And throughout the game, you can decide what demons join your party. And it's just a really fun series. I would say, if we're going by your criteria, I would say the Shin Megami Tensei spinoff that most people have probably heard of more than the actual mainline games, Persona. I could definitely, by your criteria, I could definitely see them not being role-playing games in that sense, but I guess a counter argument would be, the main character can always have multiple personas, but I guess an argument for that would be
the real question is, how do the personas affect how the story plays out?
Well, if you get 100% of personas before the final boss in some of the games, you get like a secret bonus persona and an extra cutscene. Believe so.
I reflexively refuse to add in optimal and suboptimal as separate endings.
Let's see. Oh yeah, have you ever played the Deus Ex games?
I've played a bit of the first one. A really spicy hot take of mine is that I really do love Invisible War.
Oh, that is a spicy take. Spicy with capital.
Actually, the funny, which is actually kind of in character for me, because the reason I love it is you can play as this absolute jerk with no compassion for anyone else. And it's like literally at one part, I talked to this singer's manager and agreed to have this. No, I talked to a corporate sponsor for a singer and got the manager to agree to sponsor to take that sponsor, and then I got a reward for that, and then I went to the singer and turned in the manager for taking a bribe and got a cash reward for that.
Oh, wow. Of course, since the most recent Deus Ex game, Mankind Divided, by the way, I've played it and it sucks. I would argue that Invisible War is more of a Deus Ex game than Mankind Divided is.
Oh,
I think what hurt Invisible War was early development. It was gonna be console exclusive. I think that's probably what hurt the game starting out. And of the obvious fact that the original studio who made Deus Ex kind of went under because, hey, turns out when your studio simultaneously releases the worst PC game of all time and the best PC game of all time, your publisher isn't too happy.
Yeah.
Because, fun fact, Ion Storm, the original studio behind Deus Ex, while technically a different department of the studio, they are responsible for Daikatana, the game where John Romero makes
the
you
game
bitch.
The game that died under its own jank.
Yeah. Oh God. Although nowadays John Romero is a lovely man.
Yeah.
He was in his 20s. He's partly responsible for one of what was then considered one of the greatest video games of all time.
Yeah.
That would inflate anyone's ego.
Yeah. Of course, he was a rock star.
The rock star game developer. I'm sure if he looked hard enough, we would probably find cocaine under his desk.
Or probably if you just ask him, he'd say, "You need any?"
Yeah. Of course, the human AI that is John Carmack probably only ran on oil.
No, he ran on cocaine too.
He was just a bit more discreet about the cocaine.
Yeah, it's like little did they know, mild-mannered John Carmack was actually a T-800 Terminator.
Yeah. Oh God! You know what the scary thing is? Like, obviously, there's a difference
that built
between
itself.
What's scary is, I mean, obviously, there's a bit of a difference, but like, John Carmack in like the last 20 years does not look like he's aged all that much. It's kind of scary.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you, sir? You're working for Mark Zuckerberg now. I don't feel comfortable. Have they ever made up
of him at the appropriate?
Like Carmack and Romero? I mean, because like that was his whole reason for leaving, because him and Carmack got into a beef. Have they ever made up?
Oh, I did not know about that beef, so I don't know about any makeup. I imagine they have, though.
Oh, and like John's Romero's been semi-active. He released a free ultra hard Doom expansion pack that included some new levels a couple 2 years ago. And then
Sigil.
Yeah, and then he did a live stream of him playing Doom Eternal.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, it's what you expect, you know. For first couple minutes of that live stream, it's just like for what video remains of the live stream, it's kind of just like a black screen, and there's no webcam either, so you can't see John Romero's luscious hair with gamer headphones on.
Yeah.
It is amazing, by the way, that he's managed to maintain that and hasn't like
Yeah.
balded.
Uh,
I I honestly expected, like, when you see like early pictures of him, you think, oh no, he's probably gonna have like the bad like forehead middle balding, but he's still gonna keep like the long strands of hair. No, he's maintaining that beast.
yeah.
I don't know what deal of Satan he signed to have that maintained, but dang. And then let's see. Would you have you played it's more of a recent game, but it's in the retro style. Have you played Dusk?
I actually haven't played any of the new shooters. It's haven't played Dusk, haven't even played Doom 2016.
Mm.
Yeah,
Dusk
like
is it's really interesting. It reminds me a lot of Quake 1.
sounds fair. Especially since so much mobility.
Yeah. And then you want to know what I find really funny is the drastic difference in story that is Quake 1 compared to the rest of the series. You know, you got like Lovecraftian horror that you're battling against, and then in the rest of the games it's you're fighting cyber aliens. Of course,
Yeah,
that's mainly due to the fact that everyone on the team had their own separate idea of what Quake should be.
oh yeah.
And because like Romero wanted to make it, Romero was in the camp that wanted to make it sort of like a successor to, I don't want to say a successor to Doom, but like, you know, just like he wanted to delve into the Lovecraftian angle. But you had Carmack and the others who wanted to do like the more like unique futuristic take. And what's unique about Quake is that's the last game that Carmack and Romero worked on, and like a lot of people say that was like the last up until Doom 2016. That's when id became more concerned with fancy new technology for game engines rather than fun behind the game. Because, you know, if we're going to put it in extremes here, you know, Romero represented like the fun actiony side, while Carmack represented, you know, the advanced tech that
The
games.
functioning side.
Yeah. And I think it's pretty clear that those two needed each other, because I know some people enjoy
without Romero, we got Rage.
Oh God. And without Carmack, we got Daikatana.
Yeah.
It took a bit to affect the first mentioned, but I think it was still pretty prevalent. You know, I never played Rage. What was the entire concept behind that? It just seemed like post-apocalyptic wasteland Mad Max stuff.
it was basically just if Mad Max were a shooter, and it didn't really have any new mechanics, just some gimmicks, and otherwise just one of the blandest shooters you could find.
You know what? I heard that they were, before Doom 2016 came out, they were originally going to make a Doom game that was basically Call of Duty, except you're fighting demons.
Yeah, I heard about what went on with the in the background for that. It was about halfway through development, I think. It's like they said, you know what? This looks like everything else out there. Why are we making this?
Yeah, because I saw a trailer for it. So they had at least gotten some way into development for it. Can you imagine,
Yeah,
though, the alternate universe where instead of Doom 2016, we got that instead?
Call of Doom.
Call of Doom. No, you watch. That's the alternate universe where we get the good Doom movies.
And they storm the beaches of they storm the beach of hell.
They'll find some way to have like a historical figure, like a speech over it. Ugh. Doom. Why can't they ever get a good movie? First, like, there was the mess that was the theatrical release, and then Doom Annihilation came
Yeah,
out with the budget of a
yeah,
ham sandwich. And
and
like,
the acting to boot.
yeah. And what I've noticed is with these Doom movies is that, I mean, you can argue with the first one because they wanted it to be more based off Doom 3, which was more horror. But like
Yeah,
with these movies, they make the enemies a lot tougher than they actually are in the game. Like
yeah,
in Doom Annihilation, zombies are taking out main characters left and right, and we see like one imp. And like the imp is like the main boss.
well, yeah. It's. I keep thinking part of the root problem is that it's being adapted by people who don't understand that video game stories necessarily have to be switched around a bit in order to be a good movie story.
Mm.
It's a say with like a say with like a film story. You have your beginning and middle and end. It's like who's trying to accomplish what? How are they going about it? What is the result? But with a a video game story, you're spending about for for a 10-hour game, you're spending 9.5 hours in Act Two because you're playing the game and doing stuff.
Yeah, that's, of course, with Doom, you could easily trim down the fat. I think what probably would have worked is if they just went full action movie on it. Like, basically just make the Doom guy Arnold Schwarzenegger. Don't actually, cast Arnold Schwarzenegger, but like, just embrace, the ludicrousy of Doom guy being this one man army,
Yeah,
Of course, you couldn't really do a Doom guy in Doom Annihilation because it was more of a Doom lady, but still.
yeah,
At least they knew who their main character was in that movie.
yeah.
Like they missed such an opportunity making The Rock the Doom guy. And I'm pretty sure, I mean, obviously I was around during that time, but I don't ever remember seeing trailers for the Doom movie. But like, I would imagine people who would have seen trailers for that movie probably thought he was going to be a Doom guy-esque character too.
Yeah.
And it's like, nope, he's actually the main bad guy.
Yeah.
And like they had that interesting section where it's like all first person, kind of like the hardcore Henry movie.
Yeah. I'm in the clear minority of people who did not enjoy that section
In the
because
movie,
it just felt too on the nose for me. Yeah.
it was a bit on the nose, and I guess it wasn't necessarily earned.
Well, the worst part is that it really is the best part of the movie because that's where all the action actually happens.
Right. Well, it's like,
It's
and
like someone's actually doing something in this section.
right, and what was it? And it was they did this weird story where, guys, the monsters aren't actually from hell. It's just, their chromosomes got mixed up.
They're an ancient Martian species.
Yeah. Doom 3 in general, like even Doom 3 still kept like, oh yeah, these are creatures from hell. Like,
yeah.
did they, when they were adapting the story, did they feel, nah, man, the portal of hell stuff is too ridiculous. Let's just add another chromosome.
Yeah.
I would have loved to be a fly on
Yeah,
the wall.
I've had my
Go ahead.
I've had my own thoughts on how to make an actually good movie, and really, it's just how do you get the protagonist onto Phobos, and how do you get him pissed off,
Mm-hmm.
and then you flood it with the demons, and the rest of the movie writes itself essentially.
Right. Well, I mean, they could easily do that because Doom Guy's backstory is the whole reason why he was relocated to Mars is because he refused to fire on innocent civilians. So
Yeah.
they basically sent him to do a dead end job guarding Mars. Little did his superior officer know that was like the best decision he could have made.
Yeah.
And like that, you see that right there, that beginning part, they would have to make sure they would show it rather than tell it, because a bad Doom movie would tell them, why is he here? Oh, did you hear? Or like, some crewmates who will die off later will be like, did you hear that guy? He refused to take orders. It sends him here.
Starting it off would be simple. Actually show him punching out his commanding officer.
Uh-huh. And like you could do like some interesting scene transitions with it too. Like maybe like when the punch connects, it does like a smooth transition into him being on the transport ship.
Yeah.
And
now just thinking of actually a transition would be like then all the other guys tackle him, they handcuff him, and they push him into a vehicle. And as he's being pushed into the vehicle, that's the transition where he's being pushed into his room at base.
Oh, there you go. And then like he keeps one picture of Daisy.
Yes.
That would be lovely to see.
Yeah.
And what would be even more interesting is if you made him a silent protagonist.
He would have to be a voiced protagonist.
You think? I don't know. I think
for a movie story, he would have to be voiced.
Now the question is,
there's a few stories that have silent protagonists, but it's like they're written in very specific ways, and they're basically avant-garde stories.
Right. If we were to pick an actor, like current 2020, if we could pick an actor,
Yeah.
Who is your ideal Doom guy?
Have you ever seen Super Troopers?
Uh, Super Troopers. I don't think I have.
Uh, let's, uh,
Doing my
oh,
my pick for like a Doom guy s character. I don't know, maybe Chris Evans, the Captain America
yeah.
actor.
Or can you pull up Google Images?
Super Troopers 2001.
If you look up Kevin Heffernan, he could do the Doom face.
Oh, Kevin Hefford. Here we go. Oh,
It's
I
like he's
mean,
the guy that could really do a shit eating grin when he pulls up the chainsaw
I
or
could
the
see
sadistic
it.
grin. Yeah.
I, I mean, I could see it, but in terms of build, not the ideal Doom guy.
It,
If we're talking face, yeah.
well, yeah, it's like you can. It's like as far as build, it's like he could probably agree to go into a gym, get bulked up a bit.
Now you see, current people would think that's fat shaming.
Yeah. Only the very loud ones.
Well, no, you see, it's because he's a guy. They wouldn't complain.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, no one cares when you pick on the fat man.
But if they told if Amy Schumer wanted to be in an action film, they told her to lose a couple pounds, Twitter would be in an uproar.
Actually, it was weird seeing Twitter get in an uproar because Rebel Wilson voluntarily lost weight.
Well, you see, the argument for that
It's
would
like
be
she said to herself,
you're giving in to what those pigs want.
yeah.
Well, if to get it derailed a bit, if you remember when Odell, the famous pop singer, when she lost weight, people flipped out because people put her on a pedestal and basically used her as the excuse for why they don't have to work out. I don't have to lose weight because I can be fat and productive like Odell.
Yeah. Well, uh, part of that also is from one of Adele's early interviews where she said, I don't want to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated. I want to be on the cover of Rolling Stone.
Mm.
Where the, yeah.
Well, I mean,
Then
like
again, it's like,
overall,
it's,
she made a healthy decision. I think
yeah,
to get back on topic a bit,
yeah,
modern actors, I would definitely see. I don't know, maybe The Rock. The Rock still looks good. He could definitely try to do a round two of that. Chris
yeah.
Evans would be a more likely pick for a Doom guy character.
Uh, it's like with Chris Evans, and he's he's a bit too friendly for it, I guess.
You don't think he could pull off that like mean exterior required?
Uh, I guess I don't know that he'd be able to do it.
Right. Watch, if they ever did do this, it would be Chris Pratt who gets picked. Because Chris Pratt isn't everything,
No,
even if he's horribly
Ryan
miscast.
Reynolds again.
Oh God. Ryan Reynolds as Doom Guy.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, on his YouTube channel, he would make fun of it too.
Yeah, he'd be wearing the Praetorian armor with minus the helmet because that would have the Deadpool mask on.
Oh yeah. And probably be like, "Hey bitches, guess who's Doom Guy now?"
Yeah. Jason Momoa could do it, now that I think.
Oh, Jason Momoa.
He could go Conan. It's like he wasn't bad in Conan the Barbarian. It was just a bad script, but it's like as far as his acting goes, he could
Oh yeah,
pull
that's
off
right. Aquaman.
Angry.
And he was the reboot of Conan the Barbarian, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I could see him do it. I think they would tell him to lose the hair, though.
Probably, yeah.
It's interesting. It would be interesting though to see a Doom guy with long, luxurious hair.
The Doom Predator. He just has his hair in braids going out the back of the helmet.
You just hear the clicking sound. Oh wait, how come no one's done that yet? Doom guy versus the Predator
Versus Alien.
versus Superman and Batman versus Jason versus Freddy versus Hellraiser versus Ash. We're getting our own cinematic universe up in here.
Now I'm picturing Bruce Campbell as Doom Guy.
Oh, yeah. If this was the 80s, I would say yes.
Nah, yeah, but it's like it would be the Ryan Reynolds probably. He'd just be too snarky.
Yeah, that's the one problem. He has too much charisma to be Doom Guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I think that's the reason why both movies have never stated one character is indeed Doom Guy. They just had Doom Guy-esque characters. It's because they don't know what to do with a guy who is such a blank slate besides the fact that he wants to protect. I mean, don't get me wrong, Doom Guy does have character. You know, loves his rabbit. He wants to protect innocent people no matter what. But like those are just in terms of like what does he do for a living? I mean, no, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase that. Like, what does he like to do? On his off time.
Yeah.
Does him and Daisy does he make the entire day about playing with her? Stupid questions like that.
Actually, because of Judge Dredd, I could see Carl Urban as a proper Doom Guy.
I feel so bad because I completely forgot about that actor, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God, Judge Dredd. That was such 90s right there.
No, not the 90s version.
No, I mean like in terms of like
the 2010 reboot.
I'm talking like in terms of like comics.
Oh, the comic.
Like the 90s edge was just dripping from that comic.
Yeah.
You have a main character who has
the
pouches.
sheets were made of wood pulp glued together with edge.
Right. And then Rob Liefeld is the main caretaker. I make fun of that man's work, but I've never actually seen a physical picture of him. I'm super curious now. What does Rob Liefeld look like? Liefeld. Oh, uh, he, he looks like a dad, like from a sitcom, which is so surprising considering he basically created 90s Edge.
Huh.
Have you ever seen his drawing of Captain America?
Which one?
It's the one where it's like he drew Captain America so muscularly that
Yeah.
it's like his chest just pops out.
Oh yeah, that one.
Like if we were using if we were using the terms for today, we would be all like, man, Captain America thick.
Yeah. No, he's swole.
He's swole. And so you know how like retro indie games have been doing like Super Nintendo and NES games for like the past 5 years.
Yeah, it's
Well, they're now moving to the
especially
PlayStation 1
everything
era.
Metroid.
Yeah. Well, they moved on. They're now doing PlayStation 1.
Yeah.
They've done that. I've seen it a lot in like recent like indie horror games.
Well, yeah, it's indie horror games aged better on the PlayStation because they're still unsettling.
Right, and like a lot of people are
Which
using the PlayStation 1 graphics to their advantage because what they're doing is they're basically making Lovecraftian esque monsters. And with PlayStation 1 graphics, you can't really tell fully the details of the monster, but you just see enough of it.
yeah.
Which in that aspect is actually quite interesting.
Yeah, it's being necessarily limited in how much of the monster you can show, which feeds into the horror because it means you're unable to ruin the surprise,
Mhm. In my opinion,
so to speak.
the best horror game is Silent Hill 2.
I won't disagree with you. Horror games actually aren't my cup of tea per se.
No? You see, like
Although it's like I've heard plenty about plenty of.
I love horror, like just in general. I love horror movies, love horror games. I love horror comics.
Yeah, I tend to be more of a fan of the power fantasy side of gaming.
Oh yeah, that's perfect. That makes perfect sense because
Yeah,
people
yeah,
just want to play games to have fun sometimes. Surprisingly enough.
yeah. It's yeah, yeah. But with like horror games, it's like clunky controls are part of the uphill battle you have
Right.
against the monster.
Oh god. You know how I was talking about video essay. Oh, hang on. Oh, okay. What I was mentioning earlier about video game essay videos that are like 2 hours long.
Yeah,
There was this guy who who did what was it, like an hour and a half video, full length, time for movies, standard
Yeah.
hour and 30 minutes. And his whole spiel about horror games was, and it's not that he himself finds horror games not scary. That's perfectly fine. But he's objectively saying, as a whole, horror games aren't scary. And that's where I have a problem with these video game
Yeah.
essay videos. It's not that. It's not that they're stating their opinion. They're stating an objective fact that you all must understand because they are the ones who discovered this truth, and they are bestowing their knowledge upon you, the viewer.
Well, basically, they're stating an opinion as a falsifiable statement.
Right. And then they get butthurt when people are like, this is fine, but this is just your opinion, dude. And then they get butthurt about it. It's a bit annoying, but you just learn to eventually just avoid that entire side of YouTube. I like my reviews at max like an hour long. And even then that depends on like the personality behind that video. Like you know, like your standard character review, like Spoony or Angry Video Game Nerd.
Yeah.
I could watch an hour-long video or episode from one of those guys, no problem. But like when it's in that slow essay-like format, it's a bit of a struggle.
Yeah.
What kind of content on YouTube do you mainly prefer?
Mainly the more entertainer style game reviewers.
Oh, same as me.
Yeah.
Oh God, it feels.
Well, it's
it feels so weird now. Like I think it's safe to say I'm part of the last group of people who really got into that style of content. And now it's like Angry Video Game Nerd is now 40. The man has 2 kids.
Yeah.
You know, Doug Walker isn't that far off, and like I wouldn't be surprised if like content creators like Linkara were close to meeting them in terms of age. And it's kind of sad, and it's kind of sad seeing that form of video content die off.
Yeah, it's the environment for it just isn't there anymore.
Yeah. And don't get me
Is
wrong,
what happened.
you still see people like them. Like a good example of this is a content creator. His name is Some Call Me Johnny, and it's more laid back now. It's definitely not like it's definitely not character driven like a Nostalgia Critic video would be. But in that style of format, he's still delivering it.
Yeah, for informative reviews, I generally go for Worth a Buy.
Yeah, I watch those guys occasionally. Or then if I watch G-Man Lives, if you ever heard of that channel. Because he still
heard of it.
because in my opinion, he still has personality behind the mic, but he still gives you an informed of whether or not to buy a recent game or not, which is good.
Uh,
Well, hey man, thank you for being on the podcast. For those of you who want to check out his content, his YouTube will be in the description. His username is Lendrigan. Well, I'm butchering this. Lendrigan. Could you pronounce it so that way so that way people actually understand English? Ugh.
Yeah, this is Lendrigan.
Lendrigan.
I'm currently trying to make a roguelike as
Hello, world.
Yeah, as Lendrigan Games.
Yeah, so if anyone's interested in, the process of video game development, definitely check out his content. He uploads consistently. And
I've been more consistent lately than I had been before.
Yeah. And he's got for small YouTubers, he's got a pretty good sub count. Let's get him to 50. I just subbed.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So anyway, this is Nerdy John signing out. You all have a lovely day.